Hi guys, thank you for tuning in to a very special episode. We've got a joint episode of Different Roots and
Mentalk Ubuntu.
Yeah, so we're very lucky to do a collaborative episode today. We're doing a deeper roots and about mental health, and who better to invite for this episode than guys that's big advocate for mental health in the people of color community. So welcome guys, we appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Absolute pleasure and honor to be here.
Yeah, no worries. So before we begin, let's quickly do a quick introduction as to who we all are, I guess, because I know you'll be releasing this on your podcast too. So why don't you start us off?
Sure. As our listeners will know, I'm Shamenda and currently doing a PhD part-time and teaching part-time. Also, had a few struggles with mental health, really got involved with the services to get out of that space, and now trying to help other people work their way out of those, as well as I love having fun, being active, so we're trying to combine it with that sort of thing, and very happy to be here.
Nice one. Guys, I'm Imasiku. Some know me as the chill philosopher, because I'm a very laid back guy. I'm a very logical thinker. I run my own marketing photography business that specializes in virtual tours called Spaced VR. Growing up, I'm from a Nigerian background. I lived in Nigeria, England, Canada, and now back to UK. So I've experienced a lot of cultural diversity and also cultural differences from the different environments I've been in professionally and in my educational pursuits. So I'm looking forward to sharing my experiences with you guys and talking about my struggles and my triumphs. And we'll take it from there.
My name is Ray. I'm an IT project manager in terms of my profession. On top of that, I'm also a founder of Mentalk Ubuntu, very passionate about mental health, Black man, changing perceptions, breaking stigmas in the community, and just bringing everybody together so we can, create that sustainable change now and also in the long-term future. And just be more happy and be together with not just brothers, but also everybody else in the wider community, create advocates, allies, and everything else that goes along with it.
I'm Jermaine. They call me the optimistic anthropologist because I do think everything's going to work out well. And I studied anthropology. I run my own consulting firm called Agile North Consulting, and I love playing basketball and quite passionate about social issues, especially general injustices, whatever they may be. So looking forward to sharing my life in boarding school in England, being the only Black kid in the class, and generally my time in Nigeria, and a bit of diversity and different perspectives.
Yeah. Nice one. So guys, let's get this going.
I mean, I want to break the ice.
All right, go on. Let's do it.
Break the ice in normal tradition of what we do. I'll hand it over to Shai, who can give us that icebreaker.
I mean, so the typical way we like to start is on a scale of 1 to 10. Dami, how are you feeling today? 1 being not so great, 10 being amazing and outstanding.
Oh, this is a good icebreaker. I think I'm very much a politician by my responses, so I'm gonna say a 5. So there's room for improvement always, but I'm never gonna be too depressed about my day, because I know I'm blessed by I have the ability to pay my bills. I have the ability to be thankful that I'm able to walk, play basketball, have friendships and things like that. So I have support systems in place that I know if I falter, I can always rely on that. And so I can never really be a 1 because God has blessed me in many ways. So 5.
Amazing.
Go for it.
On a scale of 1 to 10, right now I would say I'm about a 7 going on an 8. Outstanding, always improving is my everyday motto. The fact that I'm blessed to be invited on this lovely podcast with my fellow brothers. And I know at the end of this podcast, I'll be, you know, a roaring 9, 10, who knows? But yeah, stay tuned and find out. But other than that, I'd say, you know, just to echo what Dami said, very blessed and fortunate to be where I am and, you know, count my blessings. And more importantly, I'm in a good space in terms of my mental health because I've got a really good support network as well. And just continuing to build and not rest on that.
Well, I'm optimistic, so I'm going to be a 9. I would be a 10, but I've got so much work to do that
Don't we all though?
keeps me a 9. Yeah, but I think that even when I got loads of work to do, I was like, it'll figure itself out in the end. So like, yeah, I'll be a solid 9. And like regarding support networks, I mean, that's what friends are for and family. And so yeah, I feel pretty good. And it's sunny.
It is sunny, but a little too hot for some.
Way
You know,
too hot.
The sun.
we've
Not
got
those from
a
Nigeria.
fan underneath the table right now. Yes. So little do you know.
It's not doing much justice, is it?
No, not at all. So what are you at in this 1 to 10 scale?
I'm a solid 7 for today.
Nice.
And a lot of that's probably to do with the excitement of being here. Obviously, I've listened to your show a bit, just bumping into you guys, got really good energy. What a host.
Are you talking about this water with color and ice? I'm sorry, do you want me to downgrade you to a cup?
We'll go out the good glasses.
Exactly. No, it's no brandy or Hennessy, but it'll do. Quench your thirst.
But yeah, like everyone was saying, I think more and more each day and each year, just realizing how many amazing people I have in my life. And I think part of it with Mentalk Ubuntu is, as much as we're for mental health advocacy, there's a lot of other things that we know will be tied to that, such as building stronger communities and bonds. And there's just basic things that we don't do, especially as Black men, that could change our lives, but more so our communities in a big way. Like the 4 of us might have done amazing things separately, but granted, if we come together, there's so much more we could do and more than likely help other people. And yeah, that connection spot's missing. So anytime like today, we get the chance to connect with other brothers.
That's it.
Good looking brothers out here, smart brothers out here.
You're
brothers
looking
you're
looking at just me, right? He's talking about just me. I don't know about these guys in background.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. And so part of our mission is also to promote positive perceptions of Black men and mental health. And when you hear about everything that we're doing, it's not the image that you typically see on TV. We've all said it. And the facts are, there are a lot of us who are doing great and we just need to be visible.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for being visible and letting us be visible on your platform as well.
No worries, no worries. So actually, I realized that as part of being associated with your podcast, and you guys have a nice little community you got going here in Greater Manchester, where you guys even plan trips, right? So I know that you guys recently did like a walk up. Was it Snowdon or where is it you guys walked up?
Yeah.
Some crazy mountain that
Snowdonia.
Snowdonia. You know, it has the word snow in it, right? So like Black people are not associated to snow, but I guess you're like, it's okay.
That's another stigma of Black people.
Oh, okay.
Again,
Good. We're gonna break stigmatism.
And we can't swim as well, apparently. Even though I got swimming pool in Nigeria. So I mean, I don't I've been swimming since I was
Have
a
you
kid.
used it though? Okay. Some people have swimming pool.
So some of my friends come there like, I'm not gonna get that.
Flex.
I'm like, dude, it's a support. Like, a lot of people can't swim, but, you know.
I couldn't swim. I was even swimming in the lake.
Let's take a vote. Who can swim here? There you go. See, there you go. Smashing out the stereotypes. All of us can swim. You don't believe what you read online.
All right, fair. So yeah, you're telling me you do excursions in groups, and what typically happens on these excursions, and why did you guys even do it? Right?
Yeah, so this all started, I would say, in the middle of the pandemic. I actually hiked up Snowdon And it was one of those things I didn't even know what I was getting myself into. And it was those stereotype things that, oh, this is for a white person kind of thing. I'd done it, and once I actually done it and I got to the top and came back, I had this sense of overwhelming achievement that I've never
Euphoria,
had.
I'm assuming, yeah.
Sorry?
Euphoria, just
Yes,
bliss and
yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's good.
I've just never had that before.
Mm.
And I was like, wow. So fast forward to the following year, 2020, we're in the pandemic, and I'm thinking, okay, in terms of, you know, what's happened with the George Floyd thing, that the whole George Floyd thing has really shook, not just the world, but also as Black people, for us as well, because essentially we're also numb to a lot of racism and things like that, especially being in this country, even though they say, oh, it's not really in this country, it's in America. Here it's just, it's
More
watered down.
polite.
Exactly, it's watered down, but really and truly, it's so evident. And nowadays, it's the case of like, you just numb it, suppress it, even though it's still there, and just get on with it. So the fact that it was unfortunate that the George Floyd thing happened, but it was also fortunate that it shook all Black people to realize that this is something so real. And it also had knock-on effects to people, you know, whether they were in workplaces, out of workplaces, things like that, and how companies were basically reacting to that. And at the end of the day, you know, there was no support mechanism to kind of help us Black people in that regards. So I put 2 and 2 together, had that light bulb moment that, you know, we need to create something where we bring Black men together, as opposed to bringing them in the building, them thinking we're going to sing Kumbaya, my lord, but for us to go on a journey together where we're hiking, it's not a race, we're doing it all together, and we're basically speaking to each other. Because again, in terms of the mental health, Black men don't speak. We don't know how to communicate, we don't know how to break stigmas, we don't know how to share struggles and strife. So I thought this would be the best way for us to kind of put that whole journey, because again, climbing up Snowdon is not easy. It's not easy, and it's not a race at the end of the day. You've got to stop. Everyone has different abilities, and that also has that kind of symbolism to kind of say everyone has their own struggles in their journey, but lo and behold, we're all going to get there together. And that was the unique part that kind of, you know, brought us kind of together. But what I've done, I kind of shared my idea with Shai and also another friend of mine as well, who they just immersed themselves into it. And, you know, it's like, this isn't something I've created. This is something we're collectively going to create, not just for ourselves, but also for everybody else to take ownership to have for themselves as well. And if anything, that journey has just opened a lot more doors and a lot more insight in terms of how important mental health is. Because this is something we take for granted. If we go back home, we talk about mental health, they're like, what's that? What's that? You know.
Where's home for you, by the way?
Zambia.
Zambia?
Yeah.
All right, and home for you?
Yeah, Zambia as well, born and bred.
All right, so Zambia meets Nigeria
There you
here,
go.
but our culture is still, you know,
Exactly.
still same, you know, stigmatisms, and to be able to openly talk about mental health, it's not a readily.
It's not an open conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So I get
and even in the family home, it's not really an open conversation. Whereas going through this whole journey has really enabled me a lot in terms of my relationships, not just in my family, but outside of that, and know how to be and pull people together so we can all support each other. Because again, not only are we breaking stigmas, but it's also about creating that sustainable infrastructure that we've not really had. We've had parts of it, but
sure. I can imagine, like, you know, depending on the group that you have with you, when you walk up that mountain, you guys kind of, you know, you pant and heave together, but however you talk about your different stories, and then you say, hey, you know what, you build a somewhat of camaraderie at the end of the day, because it's a collective effort, right? So you guys achieve something together. But, you know, kudos to you guys to being able to, A, do it during lockdown, B, keep doing it now, and C, when's the next big hike up or next big activity? Because I know
If we tell
We
you
need
that you're
to-
coming, that's the question.
He's doing all this talk. I'm not going anywhere. I'm climb up the damn mountain. I'll go on a bike ride with you guys.
Oh, bike
we can
ride.
cycle for like 4 hours. or
Around the
something,
canal, is that
around
it?
the canals. I'm not climbing up the damn mountain.
What if they say bike to
Don't knock it
like
until you try.
to Wales or bike to
Bike to-
Brighton,
yeah.
Brighton and back?
Yeah. I got my,
Oh.
the way my legs are set up. I'll get some leg cramps.
Excuses are happening.
Yes, sir.
Alright.
But as people don't really talk about, like black people don't really talk, we don't talk about our emotions. When you're all on the mountain, aren't some people like, why are these guys all doing this sharing their feelings nonsense? Like, and some guys like more reserved and like don't want to talk about it. How did you break down? And how many people were there as well?
I think this
Typically,
yeah. I mean, typically we aim for a group of between 12 to 20.
Yeah.
So that's nice and easy enough to break and spread. But what we found is, so it's linked to the way, in fact, it might link to your experience of boarding school. So my personal experience was I used to be like, no way you're gonna see me at Snowdon. It looked like you're talking about Kilimanjaro or Everest. Like as soon as you say mountain, that's where I'm going. And I rate in 2019, I went on holiday with some friends, about 8 other guys. I was the only black guy, right? And I thought we went to this Mount Triglav in Slovenia, and I thought that's a smaller mountain than Snowdon because I'd heard Snowdon's one of the biggest ones here. So I was like, all right, cool, I'll do that. Then maybe when I come back, I'll do Snowdon. Turns out that's a bigger mountain.
But you still did it.
Yeah, but
Kudos
the
to you.
people I was with, A, I had an amazing time, even though I'm the only black guy, and B, different ability levels. So I kind of knew what to expect when we were doing this. And the reality was, once we were away from our everyday life, you're not in your apartment, you're not near work, you're not near your friends, it's a random group of men you don't know. We're not pushing you to kumbaya or to say what's up. We're just starting with a walk. We might give you some talking points, potentially start the conversation because you don't know who's who. But once we start, people just start talking. And what are you going to do when you start talking? You say what's on your mind. You're not just going to, you shoot the breeze, but you say what's on your mind. And it might be about business, it might be about your relationships. Then as you get comfortable, you build some trust, you see that we're not there to do anything, dodgy. You start to unleash more. And that's designed purposefully, like to build bonding. And we try to incorporate a therapist or someone from the mental health specialism. Not that they're there to run a session, but because they've got that background in having those conversations and facilitating discussions, it's a safer bet that in case something comes up,
They can handle it.
yeah.
You guys have kind of upgraded the whole barbershop vibe because like barbershops are like
that's
quite
true.
like a chill community. You can like you guys can talk about anything pretty much in a barbershop, but like it's like a limited amount of time. But this is kind of like outside the barbershop, mobile barbershop on a mountain.
Men
With
need
no
to feel
haircuts.
safe, right? We need to
Yeah,
feel
it's like I
safe.
said, that's a safe zone.
So maybe instead of the therapist bringing up, you bring up the barber. You all get his name, get his company mounted.
All right,
And
now
you
I'm
know-
moving on.
I don't need more.
Oh yeah, they can still clip you up from your beard.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Put me up a little. But it is literally that, and it's just amazing. Like A, the sense of achievement and everything that comes with it. B, you're doing something completely new with people who are completely new, so you feel more comfortable almost talking about things that are also completely
You have to
new.
go back and see them on Monday at work and be like, oh, you just told me about it.
Exactly. If you want, you can come to the next event or you can stay connected. If you don't, that's it, fair enough. But you have such a great time. You hear about all the amazing things everyone's doing. Everyone wants you to do well. Why wouldn't you want to connect? So it becomes a bit more of a community, and that's the hope as well. Because prior to that, like, where do Black men go for mental health?
They keep it in private as much as possible. but
Keep it
yeah.
inside. I mean, I think I see my dad cry once. And I think I was like,
What to talk openly at a dinner table, be like, you guys suck, you're stressing me out, or what?
No, he was quite, I think like,
You brought me to tears.
it's like, is that what you got? Is that what like pay all your school fees for?
Yes, exactly.
It's like I made so many mistakes in my life. He starts weeping. No, it was like something serious, like his mom passed away. So like that's the one time I've ever seen my dad cry. But like as a firstborn son, and like you just get told like if you like fall over, it's like, I get up, like, don't cry, you're not your sister. Like, it's just kind of like, you take the lead from your dad, and like, if your dad's like most Nigerian African parents are pretty
Strong
hardcore,
figures and
strong
quiet
figures, so you're like,
types.
"Oh, I'm not gonna cry for my dad, I don't want to think I'm soft." So
Yeah.
like, that's where it starts, and then it's like, I think it just kind of stays with you. So like, you've got a problem, you just internalize it, and then it's like,
I said it previously, it starts even earlier than that. Did you know that?
yeah.
Tell us.
So I said it previously where, let's say for instance, when you're born, if let's say for instance you had an identical twin sister as well, you both fall off the table. To your sister, they're gonna say it's all right, cry. To you, they're gonna be like, oh, you're a big boy. Big boys
Big boy.
Big boys
exactly.
don't cry.
So you're being programmed from even a young age without you even realizing. So even you think about that's how you are, and that's how you're. We've all been programmed
Like that,
all the way
like,
through.
Do you want
Generations
you want
and
me-
generations.
Do you want me to tell you what my triggers are from growing up? My triggers are, Dami, stop being big for. You're not big for nothing, you know. And another one that I keep hearing, and it like sometimes I'm like, this is okay. Why do you make these assumptions? But like, Dami, something about you, you know, when I come to talk to you, always well spoken. I'm like, for someone of where you're from, I'm like,
For a native.
yeah, I'm like, because I'm educated, because I can speak English, because like,
Yeah, get out.
why is it like well spoken to me? Why is that always a descriptor for Black men of education, or even Black men of education? And
Because it seems unusual.
it's not unusual though.
I
Where
mean, to the observer, to the other
yeah,
person.
The funny thing is, you say that when this whole latest thing with the football, like the Black British players missing the penalties,
yeah,
and then I think it was John Barnes who used to play for England, and he was like a Black player ages ago, and he's like, I said this like 20 years ago, it's not about like football fans are racist, it's like, it's a societal problem, and football is part of society, so you've got to tackle the problem in society before you tackle the problem in football. So he said the perception of like Black people, it's not like the superstars, the athletes, the Michael Jordans, the Will Smiths, their perceptions were good. Like famous Black people, like they're allowed because they're like, oh, they're famous and nice.
yeah.
But like, they don't, the media doesn't put up the forward image of us like successful Black people. Once you own in gangs, once you start their business, that's never put forward. So he was basically saying we need to change the perceptions of Black people in the country and put forward all the good things we're doing and all the positive things, rather than, oh look, Black Lives Matter march ends in violence. It's like one person had a fight with someone else.
Yeah,
It was
we
like,
talked about that,
so,
yeah.
and then it's like, oh yeah, these thugs are marching all over. No, they need to portray like the good side of us, and that's the main problem. Like getting.
But the thing is, it's shock.
And that's the whole well-spoken thing.
Shock value is what sells music,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
So, let's even talk about like traditional football culture. It's always hooligans that make the news, right? It's not about the everyone went out for beers afterwards. Because that happens. People go for beers afterwards. Be like, oh, you guys tried, but you know.
Yeah, we won. Oh, you guys played really well.
Yeah.
That goal was really.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
they didn't show that.
But that's it. I mean, football is a massive community because everyone loves the game as much as you love your teams. So even you console certain people, hey, you know, you have fun. And I think it's also then important for us to say it's also not just about meeting up and it's okay to cry, although it is. It's about just meeting up and also being open and talking about random other things that might go into childhood. And I'm really curious to learn about both of your childhoods. I know you've touched on briefly the triggers.
Big man.
But I wanna,
Thanks.
I guess the first question I probably want to ask, when you think back to your journey and where you are now, maybe in those earlier days, are there particular moments that you felt more like you struggled, or maybe you felt just like you were on rocket fuel compared to now where you maybe society has tamed you a bit? I don't know if that question makes sense for you.
Ooh, T, why don't you take that one first?
On rocket fuel in a good way, like you'll succeed, like you were like, oh, the world is my oyster. And it's like, hell no, slap.
Before
I remember the song with this. I just thought about my first one ever. There was this girl I liked, and I was like in boarding
Why
school.
is it always a girl with you?
No, girls.
Why not? No,
Why
you
not?
tell us.
Why not? Women are beautiful, beautiful creatures, and if there were,
And it's for you to love them. Love them all.
If there were more female leaders, I'm pretty sure there'll be less wars. I'm pretty sure. I can't guarantee that, but I think if there were more
I'm
female
pretty sure
leaders,
you're hitting on the female.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. I don't know what
You're
talking about.
specifically talking to someone in this mic right now.
Especially female leaders with ponytails. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway.
What's her name? Tell us now.
Anyway, I forgot what I was going to say. Yes, that was a girl I liked. And I was like 13 and I was in boarding school. So I boarding school, stay there for like a month, go to London, go back home to London for like the weekend, go back to boarding school. And so I went to London and I was like talking to this girl and she's like, oh yeah, I can't wait for you to come back. We're on holiday. It was like half term and it was Valentine's Day. So I went from London to Winchester on the train on Valentine's Day, and me, her, and like three of our other friends, we went on like a double date. And we went to cinema. And then
How old were you at the time?
like 13, 14.
What movie did you go to on a triple date? Like,
I don't remember the movie. I wasn't focused on the movie.
Oh.
I didn't get a train from London to Winchester to watch the movie.
Pre-gaming that Netflix deal before Netflix is a thing.
Before Netflix. The original Netflix deal was Odeon and Chill. And it made that little,
Wow.
textbook. So we had a date, went to cinema, holding her hand, and then afterwards, like I went to kiss her, but she was being a bit weird. I'm like, oh, but she really liked me for. Her friend comes up to me and she's like, looked at me and like, you know, I love you, like I'm your friend, and like I introduced you to her, but like I'm really sorry, like she doesn't know how to tell you this, but her dad says that she's not allowed to date a black guy.
They said that.
That's what she couldn't say. Her friend said it because she's like, and her friend like obviously introduced me. My friend was dating her friend, and so she's like, oh yeah,
What's
What's guy?
I was obviously
Yeah.
it's Winchester.
And
Man.
what was her background? It was English.
She was English. Everyone was English except for me.
Okay.
And so then I was like, I just got a train here, like on Valentine's Day, and like I didn't even get dumped because it was like our second date, and I was just like, my dick basically got dumped, and she was like, she felt really bad, and she's like, I'm really sorry, but like that was what she said, and I'm like, you could have told me this before I got on the damn train. So like that was I was like, I wasn't heartbroken because I didn't like her that. When you're like 13, 14, you're not like infatuated, but like I was like, I like her, and I was like, damn, like. He just I haven't even met the guy. He just heard I was back and he doesn't want to date me. So that was like I think the first time. And then the second time was like getting stopped by police, just like with my white friends, we're riding bicycles, and then in my area in London, it's a nice area, and then they stopped me like every 4 days in a week, and they're like, did you steal this bicycle? What are you doing on him? I live here, my house is right over there. And they're like, I had like a really big afro back then. And then so those two things, I think the first few times I got stopped by police in London, and that girl being like, my dad says that I can't date you because you're black. And I was like, wow. And like I never really thought about it till then, because
Did that lead you down the path of finding out more about what being black is and being proud to be black, or did it make you shrink in terms of, oh, black isn't as good?
That's a good question. To be honest, I hadn't really thought about it when I was young, because when I was a kid, I was like going to Nigeria at Christmas, all my cousins, got cousins in America, and in London's a diverse city, so I had like friends from all over. When I got to boarding school, and after this happened in boarding school, like first year is like when you're 13, afterwards being like the only black kid in my, not in the whole school, but in like in my year, it was, people say things like on my first day, someone's like, are you made of chocolate? And then so like I just said dumb shit for like, oops, I'm not meant to swear, my bad. So like dumb things that kids would say when they're like 13 and they're ignorant, and he lived in Yorkshire, never seen a black guy before. And so I kind of, like you said, I jumped into the role more. So then I was like, well, if you guys are gonna be racist, I mean, I already like Dr. Dre and stuff. So I was like, I'm just gonna be like fully black.
Right into the brand.
Yeah, I'm just going to it. So I'm like, all right, cool. So like started wearing chains, and I was just like, started this hip hop. And then if anyone talked bad to me, I'm like, don't whoop your ass. Like I started talking like a black American for a bit, for like a year or two. So then I think I didn't lose because those are your formative years, like 13, 14, like when you're a teenager. So I started like, I was heavily influenced by like 50 Cent. I got like a big cross tattoo on my back, just like 50 Cent. So like, I think my influence kind of went a bit more 50 Cent. And if anything happened after that day, I just had zero tolerance. So some guy once said, your skin is the color of poo. I slapped the crap out of him in a lesson. And like the teacher's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, he's down the color of poo. And then the teacher's like, okay, cool, he's going to this. So like, then I realized, oh, cool. I mean, I can do whatever. If someone's mixed, I can do whatever I want. So then on it was all different. So like the power term, but the first few years, it was just like a lot of people saying, not malicious, just like ignorant things and like dumb things. And like, oh, you're black, you can't swim. Oh, you're black. Oh, you're black. Did you steal your car? Like, I'm like, that's English boarding school. They make like the most lame, unimaginative jokes,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, until you check them and then it gets stopped. So
It's like any bully, right? If you
Yeah.
check them, they usually
they'll
back up.
stop, yeah. But boarding school's a lot. I'm pretty sure I was traumatized in boarding school.
Mm.
Like, I had loads of friends, but it was still a lot. Like, just even one day we got caught in the pub and we all ran. And then I got back to my boarding house and the housemaster was like, "So you were in the pub. Everyone ran. The only person we could ID was you."
With
So
Timaine,
The
yeah.
one black guy.
Yeah.
the one black guy.
Timaine's always in the middle of all these.
Literally.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and then they're like, if
Trouble.
you tell on your friends, we want to suspend you. Like, so you want me to snitch on like 12 people in my school? No, I'm cool. I'll take that. Took it on the chest. And then went down like a block legend.
So here's actually, let me give you a follow-up question. Now that you've gone through that experience and you said boarding school has been a trying time for you, have you ever had a discussion with your parents saying, you know what, this was maybe not the right decision, or well, maybe even a different question altogether is, what would you do to change it in the future for your kids? You know, would you put them in boarding school or no? Or would it be, because private school is considered elite, you get the best education.
And you meet
Yes.
loads of connections. You meet really good.
That's how
influential people.
Boris Johnson and his mates
like
met,
some of
right?
my friends are now, yeah, politicians, lawyers, doctors. So it's like, yeah, you get the network. Just like an MBA, you get the network, but you get it early in boarding school. I think everyone's different. It depends on your personality if you can handle it. My little brother went and he didn't last that long. He didn't finish there because he just got homesick and stuff. It depends on your personality. My sister loved it. I loved it. My brother did. He's the youngest. So it teaches you to be independent, and like something like moving to Manchester, like I can go anywhere in the world and make friends like that. And it's the confidence they teach you in boarding school. And then the third thing is the way you speak. Obviously, it helps you, like when you get stopped by police. "Hi, officer." They're like, "All right, let him go." I'm like, "What's up, blood? Why are you stopping me? Because I'm black, yeah?" "All right, cool. See you in the station." So it's like you learn survival skills, you learn confidence, you learn how to interact with people, you learn to network, and you get.
So there are pros.
I think there are more pros than cons, but for some people, like there were a few like white people who got bullied and like left the school. Like it's like, obviously it's not, it's like prison, but it's not obviously, but it's like military, prison, boarding school. It's like institution. So it's like you're in bunk beds or you're in dormitories, like you wake up at a certain time, like people bully people, like it doesn't get seen by the housemaster because it's like, yeah, just like how I imagine the army is prison. And it's like everyone clicks up and it's like, okay, he's the weakest link, let's put him in a laundry basket and throw him down the stairs, like that kind of stuff. Yeah, or like let's lock him in a locker. Yeah, and no one's gonna go to teacher. These guys lock me in a locker. No one's locking me in a locker, just know that. But no one's gonna go to teacher, I got locked in a locker, because then you're gonna be like, oh, he's a snitch, and then he's gonna get even more bullied. So it's like survival of the fittest, really.
But you will, like, let's say for the next generation, you would like highlight all these pros and the cons to them. And let's say when you have a kid, and I know he's not going to be Caucasian, you know, if it's you're a biological kid, but so you'll tell them about, you know, what it's like to be a black person in that environment.
I'll give them a freaking crash course. My parents were like, "Oh, ladies," they didn't say anything.
Oh, you're gonna give them a boot camp at home and be like,
"Look,
you're the weakest link down the stairs."
Don't get bullied. Like, don't take any nonsense. But like, just be respectful, be nice, know where you come from, know your value, know your worth, and like, go get some good grades. And if anyone messes with you, don't tolerate it. That's what I would tell them. And like,
So at what stage did you start going through your culture for you to kind of, you know, go back and, so you said that your parents didn't really teach you in terms of, you know, much of your heritage?
No, they taught me loads of my Nigerian heritage, but not how to survive in like a white boarding school. How
had they been in boarding school before?
No, they went to Nigerian boarding school. Then like my dad went to Yale. My mum went to Oxford. So
gentle flex, huh? Just like that.
Humble flex. Hashtag black excellence.
What school did you go to?
Winchester, baby. So yeah, no, they talk about Nigeria. They say like my dad basically, he always says he doesn't see racism. Like he was like the first black broker in Merrill Lynch, humble brag. So he's like, he went through, he like experienced it, but he's like, you can only feel a victim if you let them victimize you. And so it's like, no one can like call you a slave because your ancestors weren't slaves, because they're from Nigeria and like we own land, and like our family bloodline goes back like hundreds and hundreds of years, and we've got our heritage, we're not slaves. So like, don't let anyone call you that. He's like, you're not one of these, no offense to all my Jamaicans, but he's like, you're not a Jamaican.
You're not a Rastafarian.
You're not a Rastafarian. Like if I ever like had like when I braided my hair once, he's like, bro, we're not Jamaicans, we don't do that thing. Like I went out topless one day, like it was really, really hot in the summer, and he like drove his car, stopped it, and he's like, put on a shirt. We are not Jamaicans. We don't do that. So he's very like Nigerian, respect your elders, education
Image is
important.
everything.
Image,
Yes.
work hard, study hard, get your education, and like that will carry you through life. And yeah, pretty much. So anytime it's like, oh, this kid was racist in school, he's like, don't worry about it. Like why does that concern you? Like, what did he say? I'm like, he said, oh, my skin was the color of poo. He's like, and why does that affect you? Like, just keep moving. I'm like, I slapped him. He's like, probably shouldn't have done that. He's like, you probably should have done that, but like, don't be so sensitive. Like, it's not to you. Like,
Well,
we're not victims. We're like, we like have heritage, so you shouldn't feel. He's like, any room you walk into, you should have your head held high because like we are like descendants of royalty and shit. So like,
you're a Nigerian prince.
You're a Nigerian prince.
Back in my village,
Yeah.
you were royalty.
We're
I get
royalty's
that,
like, yeah. So he's like, don't let me. It's weird. So yeah, he's just like, don't worry about it.
Sounds like you've had a really good, relationship and dialogue with your father as well. When has it always been that kind of
No, but he's hardcore, man. He's hardcore.
Strict.
Yeah. Hard.
Doesn't he have like like kung fu?
He does. Yeah, he did kung fu.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when he says I'll slap the black on the
actually,
You better be scared.
Yeah, that did not like that. That's why I was getting in trouble in boarding school. I was not worried. Then they're like, I'm gonna call your parents. I was like, please, I'm sorry. I will change. I will be good. Like, you got attention. I'm like, give me 2 hours. I don't care. He's like, you're gated. I'm like, that's cool. You're not allowed out. I'm like, that's cool. He's like, you're suspended. I'm like, please, I'm sorry. I'll change. Don't send me to the first time we can arrange. I'm gonna put this check here. Just stop when I write a number. But the first time I got suspended, I went home. My dad locked me out of the house for like 12 hours. Like he was like, you're not coming in here. He's like, sit and think about what you've done. He came out, took my phone, closed the door, and I was like, oh man, and he just left me there. Then eventually my mom took me out.
Oh, your mom let you in, you mean?
Yeah, my mom's like, no, she took me out for lunch. She took me out for dinner by then, because I came in the morning. She took me out to dinner. She's like, you've been here all day. I'm like, yeah. She's like, come on, let's go get some food. Like, thank you, mom. Love you.
Mommy's boy.
Unconditional love there.
I am a mommy's boy. Definitely, but my sister's a daddy's girl. But anyway, doesn't Danny have a loaded question?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I'm like psychoanalyzing.
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. It sounds like you're going through some stuff. We need to uncover your stuff.
I get a tissue like that.
You do need to come on our next event.
I think I'm coming up slower with you guys.
Next one's caving. So we go deep
underground.
That's right.
Underground.
It's not deep underground or anything like that, but
No, you got
when we talk about
experience.
white people activities, we went to Poland and my two friends were like, let's go to these salt mines. You go down like a rickety lift under Poland, Warsaw, and then like it's these salt mines, underground caves, and it's like 7,000 meters on, I don't know, somewhere ridiculous. I'm like, dude, I'm not going underground. Have you not seen these horror movies? I'm not going in some lift, wooden lift with the ones with the pulley system. No, but the caves collapsed and now we're stuck here, guys. Don't worry, someone will come and save us. No, I'm on top of the ground calling for help for you guys.
When that situation's happening, I was like, I refuse to be a statistic. You guys
wow.
Minimize risk under any
Exactly.
circumstance.
Because the last thing I want is even if I die, it'll be like my mom, like I raised him better than this. Why is it? Does he not know?
Does he not know? We don't do such things. And if I get trapped in a cave, if we get trapped in a cave, Danny's getting eaten first. Those muscles and those gains.
You think you can all take me?
Oh yeah.
We're gonna get shot when he's sleeping. We get him. Exactly. Big rocks, lots of rocks.
Make sure you can use more than one.
More than one rock. You won't live on me. I'm not. I'm skinny, man.
That's a good transition, actually, Danny. Then, because you said you had this trigger of you're not big for nothing, and we've spoken about checking people. Have you had moments where size was a factor, or where you had to check people? I'm seeing a gentle giant. I'm seeing a calm guy, and I know still waters run deep. Like, what happens? Or did you have similar ones when you were younger?
When I was younger, you know, it's like
that you can't go to jail for now. You know.
Okay.
So let's clarify that.
Yeah, exactly. You know me.
Statute of limitations is gone, man.
I'm gonna really play the politician right there.
318, you know.
318. Okay, so there's this girl, right? No. So I think for me, when I say big for nothing, it's you know, I'm not a skinny guy, and I don't think I'll ever be, you know, because you know I'm built different, as I like to call it.
I'm built different. Humble brag.
Yeah. Well, no, it's the truth. is that, you know, even on, let's keep it cultural. So that way it's like, you know, I'm built different, but however, a lot of people want the stereotypical skinny person, say, you know, what is good looking in the Nigerian eye or the young people's eye, at least in the upper generation, they say, you can't be big, you can't be big bones, you can't be, you know, it's, or you're too dark, you know, because I'm a team dark skin, right? So,
Come on,
yeah, sorry.
Yes.
So it's like when you get called, oh, you know what, Dami, you're too dark, you shouldn't be wearing this color, it makes you look darker than you are, or Dami, you're too big for this ride, you should lose some weight, or Dami, what you've been eating, you know. And but the thing is, like, all these things, you know, they're said to me, maybe not even, they might be said in jest, right? But it's still, these are things that, one, maybe for my skin tone. I remember like trying to like scrub so I could be lighter, you know, but I can't, right? I tried and tried when I was
Glad
young.
you didn't learn about the soaps.
No,
That beauty thing's a real problem,
Yeah.
man.
It's
Real
there.
problem, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, or even let's even say, oh, damn, you're too big. I'm like, this is partially why I even go to gym now, as hard as I do. It's because I've been told, like, you know, you should run more, you should go to the gym more. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I'll play sports, but you know, I can't really be that skinny guy or whatever. And thanks a lot. Nigerian culture says you shouldn't eat a lot, but our food is carb rich, man. It's heavy.
Every meal.
You showed me an African household where clean play isn't the standard.
Exactly.
If you're a man, you need to eat.
Exactly. Where's the meat? Where's
Listen,
Finish pasta's plate.
exactly.
I need more meat,
Exactly.
big portion.
So, but
Bring that meat.
yes.
I want that one.
So all these things I've kind of had to face growing up, but however, you know, as I mature and I become more comfortable with myself, you know, I'm able to say, you know what, F it, I'm Big D, you know, that's what people call me.
Big D.
Yeah, that's it. You know who it is. My name's Dan. Jessica, this is for you, or Tamane's girl that he tries
Gary's like, this is an invitation to slide into my DMs.
I'm sliding. All right. But yeah, as I grow more comfortable with my personality and who I am, I play the card. I play it up. You know, people say, oh, you know, Dami, you run so fast for your size. Like when we play basketball, people are.
This guy can run for days in Barcelona. I'm there like, and he's like, all right, I'm open. I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? He doesn't get tired.
Yeah, so which is also.
I'm like, you're like an Ethiopian trapped in a Nigerian body, man. The way you run, you're like, or Kenyan, like a long distance runner.
Olympics 2020, you know, I'm
alien Olympic team.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is that, you know, I've grown more comfortable with my personality. I've now played into it, and me being able to run because of my size, kind of thing. This is played in from previously from being called too big to be nothing. But I want to say, despite my size, I could still move around. I could still be agile. I could be athletic, kind of thing. And then me being black, you know, sucks that people say you taste like poop.
Taste. Do you know what poop tastes like, buddy?
I'm like, oh damn, your skin is so nice. I'm like, yeah, you know, rich with melanin. They got that chocolatey goodness.
On the first day of our MBA course, we had to all introduce ourselves to the class. He's like, I'm Big D. Your chocolate, what's it? Your chocolate?
Your friendly neighborhood chocolate man.
Yeah. I was there like, is this guy for real?
Yeah, exactly.
So he's tripping.
Yeah, you take control of that narrative. Right?
Yeah,
that's what you have. Yeah.
And that's a really good point. As you get older, you start to like be comfortable with yourself.
Yeah. So yeah, that's essentially how I've come to be who I am now. But I know that not everyone is quite comfortable with their personality. We all have our faults or what we're trying to battle. But I'm not perfect in myself too. There's still some insecurities that I still have. But however, you know, like I said before, I have my infrastructure in place. I have people in place, and you know, if I'm able to talk like this, it's more power to me, and I feel stronger and richer tomorrow.
So I'm intrigued because you mentioned something that I really love, which is infrastructure, and I talk about that all the time. So when you were younger and you were getting all these things come at you a different way, and most probably self-doubt yourself. What kind of infrastructure did you have when you were younger before you transitioned to
growing confidence in my identity? I think realistically, I think it's when you find other people that are going through similar struggles. So let's even say I had family friends. So I immigrated from UK to Canada.
Okay.
And then because my family we're Nigerian, and Nigerians always know other Nigerians, we made friends with other Nigerians, and their parents are like stereotypical African parents, and then however their kids are more westernized, like as I am. So when you then are able to find someone else that has gone through the similar upbringing, the strict Nigerian parents or the strict West Nigerian thinking, and they've also been exposed to UK culture, Canada culture, whatever, to be westernized, then you're able to have that dialogue easily with them. So there's one guy that I really think about and I really thank is one of my best friends is Fian. So he was there with me for the hard times when it comes to girls or like school and things like that, but also when it comes to injustice, things that I didn't feel comfortable to say to my parents, I would have Fian to say, hey, you know what, this happened. And then he'll console me or tell me, or like he's gone through similar things, or he can just be a boy and be like, yo, let's play some basketball, or let's beat up on these people. We never did, but it's nice to be able to have that dialogue with someone that you can really confide in. Yeah. So I had friends, that's related to my situation, so very directly themselves.
Really good. Good point. That same thing happened to me actually. When I was like 16, one of my best, same thing, like parents Nigerian, but like he grew up here, and it's like it's very hard to find someone in an exact or similar situation as you, because a lot of Nigerians I know, they were just here for like 3 years to study. So like they've been in Nigeria their whole lives, came here to study, went back. And then other ones so it's like it's very rare to find ones that grow up here, but their parents are still traditional. So yeah, it's true. Like you get similarities and they understand your perspective, which is really hard. Even dating girls, I find that really hard to like share my perspective of life with my partner. So like that's crazy, because every girl thinks about things differently, and everyone thinks about things differently. But like if you don't grow up with someone, you don't have shared experiences.
So it's hard for them to gain an understanding.
They're like, oh, why does this upset you? Why is and you're like, oh, and I've got to like go way back and explain like the whole history of why this.
Very sexy.
Oh my God. I was at a house party a few weeks ago and someone.
Wait, this is with 6 people or less, right?
Yeah, definitely. I would never ever breach COVID protocols.
We're not going to be doing that.
No,
I wouldn't have
definitely
been
not. There were only,
exactly.
I say house party, I meant 3
like
people.
Small gathering.
Exactly.
It was a Zoom. It was a Zoom house party. It was a Zoom house party. That's what it was.
All right.
And this Italian girl I said something, me and my friend were talking, I said something, and we were talking to this Italian girl, and she said in Italian, that's a funny thing for a black person to say, but obviously I speak a little bit of Italian, but not that good, but I heard the word negro, so obviously.
I know what that means.
And we're all like, what? We're like, what? And someone's like, oh, why did you find that word offensive? I'm like, first of all, why are you even like addressing me by my skin color? How's that relevant?
Came for you, bro.
She came for me.
Yeah.
So I don't actually know. Let me not even tell you what I did, because I'm not trying to get cancelled. Anyway, let's just say I was not happy about it. And I made my opinion known that I was not happy about it. But then she went and did the same thing at another house party, apparently a few weeks later, and it was like a black couple, and then it turned into a fight. So I'm like, I warned you, and now look what happens. And they all thought I was overreacting. Look how these guys handled it.
There's that saying that my parents always says, like, if you don't learn it from your house, you'll learn it from the streets.
And it's going to be painful.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's what they say. You can learn that hard way, either way or the hard way. You can learn from experience is the best teacher. All of them. My dad loves those expressions.
Yeah.
Like, well, experience is the best teacher.
You know what? This is one thing I'm very, very proudful about my Nigerian culture, is that when they're trying to teach you a lesson, they have the most wonderful analogies, proverbs. I'm like, parables. Yeah, it would be like, and then they'll say something like, And then this reminds me of, you can't take an elephant up a mountain on your back. And then I'm like, where'd you come up with all these things? I'm like, but you know, they have wisdom to them, but they're always telling me like, wow, I'm like, where'd you come up with this? Like, is there a book you all study?
I think that's like it's like a story for the right situation. Exactly. Hit it with page 32.
Yeah. Be right back.
So yeah,
I think it's also, when you touch on relationships, there's this, I don't want to say that constantly, but there's this aspect of, there's a caricature of a Black man and what you're supposed to be. And there's just relationships in general and how tricky they are. And when we factor in, because when you were talking about things to do with your physique and certain observations people were making and athleticism, that's where some of the caricature comes in. And we almost feel like, yeah, we sort of built like that. But when that's what some people first see before they see the person behind that, it becomes tricky. And when you try and open up as well as women perhaps having this view of what a man should be like, when you're a Black man as well, there's something different there also, especially because emotion isn't something we tend to show. So if you're trying to be vulnerable and explain some of the background to what's going on, that's why I sort of facetiously said, oh, that's really sexy, isn't it? She's like, no, this isn't what I wanted to hear. Like, you know, this isn't what I expected. This dude weak. And there's that association.
So you don't want to look soft. Yeah,
even we don't want to be seen as soft or weak. So, but this goes back to how you navigate that. And thankfully, you've got your friends and you've got your circle as well. And it's also realizing sometimes those circles don't have all the tools or the support you need for everything that you're going to go through in life. Like when we're in our 40s and 50s, we might need different circles. And being aware enough to know what we need is really important. And part of that is expanding our circles in general, trying to do different things. And so I thought that was
you just giving me I just thought, remember at the beginning of when we first, like beginning of the podcast, just before you said, we're talking about cycling, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I just got my bike because I crashed my car. Yeah. You're like, oh yeah, how are you? Like you were going, yeah, man, it's cool, man. Mercedes make good cars. But like actually, I was mad traumatized for like 2 weeks, and I didn't tell like anyone. It was like,
why were you traumatized?
Because I freaking almost died. Like I wrote off my car on the motorway. Like the shit was bouncing off walls and shit. I
didn't see that.
Because I don't talk about, because we don't talk about like our feelings and shit. But like,
you know, I'm here, right? You know, we're talking. I'm here for you.
This is why we don't talk about that shit.
So you're telling me you can cut glass and break your foot? You can call me for that, but you can't tell me, damn me.
He was crying on the motor.
Oh, no. My feet were so crying. But I was like,
what are you talking? Your mom told me you're crying. So fine. She told me to come to your house to help you.
These are all lies.
No, that's like you say, that's
but like it's like, and everyone's like, and then even my boys like in London, like, I crashed my car. Like, oh damn, man. But like the next day they're like, all right, cool, are we going to basketball? I'm like, he's like, all right, cool, come pick me up. I'm like, bro, I told you I crashed my car. He's like, oh yeah, my bad, yeah, I forgot. And like no one actually has been like, how you doing? Yeah. And then I was on the motor with like one of my clients like last week, and he was like driving really fast. I'm like, bro, can you like slow down a bit? And he's like, he's turning around and like, why are you been that? And these guys all drifting. I'm like, bro, I'm fully traumatized. Like, stop swerving and shit. Just like focus on the road. So like, I think that times like that, like even my parents were like, oh, I just got, my dad's like, I'm like, I've got bad news, Dad. He's like, well, I'm like, I crashed my car. No, I've got bad news and good news. He's like, what's the bad news? I'm like, I crashed my car. He's like, well, the good news is that you're alive and healthy. I'm like, yeah. So like, and that's it. And that's what we said, and we kept it moving. So I'm like, yeah, I'm happy to be alive. But then I'm in bed and I'm like, freaking thinking about like the cones and hitting shit and like replaying it again in my head. I'm like, I have no one to talk to about this shit. But I have a huge network of like friends and like family. So like, even when you have that support, it's hard to like actually activate it.
So actually, I guess, let's even throw it to you guys that are advocates for mental health and talking to people. Here in, I guess, are you based out of Manchester, London?
Let's just call it Manchester for now.
Manchester and yourself? Manchester. So where could people look to find professionals to be able to open up if they don't have their own personal networks to talk to?
So for anyone starting out looking for resources, if you don't have your support network ready yet, or you don't feel like they have the ability, the capability, the first place to go to, which I wasn't even aware of until last year, is your GP. You can actually talk to your GP, not just about your physical health, but your mental health. They might not be able to resolve things, but they can refer you to some of the other services. And luckily, if you're in the UK, these are predominantly free. If you think about other countries where you'd have to pay, it will cost you a bombshell. There's a waiting list typically, I guess depends where you are in the country, but the waiting list isn't that bad in all honesty. Obviously, if you're going through a crisis, you need emergency treatment perhaps, or sooner is better, but you don't also have to wait until you're in a crisis situation. You can go now and even just start the conversation while you're in a good place, talk about what's not going so well in life or what tends to get you down. You'll know some of the loops or the cycles, and then see if there's someone that they can refer you to. Then you've got a lot of organizations. I mean, we're new to the game. You know, as Mentalk Ubuntu, we're just part of us starting this is because we didn't see and we didn't know about what else is there. Now that we're in the game, we're starting to see that there are a lot of organizations. The issue is perhaps capacity. So if you look locally, chances are there's somewhere you can go. There's one, and not all of them are facilitated or done with professionals. Some of them are just groups where people meet up. There's one Ray recently went to check out, because we have to engage with some of these so that we can also refer people to them, right? Like there's one called Andy's Man Club, which was started I think 5 years ago, because there's a guy obviously called Andy committed suicide and he left a daughter behind. I think it was only 23 at the time, but his friends had no clue that that was going to happen. He texted them like normal the same day it happened, then he just went out into the woods and so forth. I mean, you can check them out. And they've now started opening clubs where you can just go, it's men around a circle and just talk. You don't have to go there because you're going through something, and you don't have to go there to unpack stuff. It's just to talk, so that when something does go wrong, or if it does go wrong, you will go somewhere rather than stay at home or make that permanent decision, shall we say, while you're going through temporary circumstances. You've got places like Mind, you've got the Mental Health Foundation. There's loads of charities. Yet again, if you search on the NHS website, there are the professionals who you can see. You can get referred to a psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, psychotherapist. There's all those other professionals, and it depends what you're going through and what you're experiencing. So I think trauma was mentioned once or twice. You can engage with these services. Someone goes through surveys or asks you a set of questions, checks to see what would be appropriate depending on the kind of trauma. There's groups. Hey, you can even find us if you're a man, but there's places also for women exclusively. So depending on whatever it is that you're going through, there are many services there. You've got YouTube, of course. I mean, you never know. Everyone's different. Some people might just need to listen. There are the big life-saving organizations such as the Samaritans or Crisis Helpline, where people do call in just every day, because they don't take your details necessarily. You just call, someone else is there on the other line and they listen. And I think a big part of all of this is just finding someone or somewhere that you feel safe enough for someone to listen. Hopefully, it's not when you're in such a low place that you might not want to actually reach out, and you might feel very isolated. I'd say hopefully it doesn't get to that, but make a note of the numbers, because this is the thing that even caught me off guard when I went through some mental health challenges last year. It came out of nowhere. I am not the kind of guy who you would think is going through anything. Like, I'm positive, I'm usually outgoing, I love to talk to people, I love to smile, I love to work. Like, it's hard to find me in a bad mood, it's hard to find me angry. It's a rare one. I don't know what would have happened, and nothing crazy was going on in life.
Was this is this any correlation to what is known as the lockdown blues, like the 2021 everyone trapped in the house? Or
I would say that
because a lot of people did
Yeah.
face that, you know.
I'd say that exacerbated it probably. It definitely, let's say that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back, but there was a lot of other stuff going on that my daily routine and access to people probably made me forget about. Whereas now when I was stuck in a room like prison, and I'll get to that in boarding school, but when you're stuck in a room with your thoughts all day, you can't go out, or you can only go out for an hour. Oh man, like, yeah, I think that's probably, it became, a keg? Like, I don't know, like the ingredients were there for me, like personally, because I'm not used to, well, I wasn't at the time, used to just being stuck in the house. I can be in the office and I can be out, but in the house, no. You wouldn't find me in the house. Pre-lockdown, nah. No, it's not my scene. I have to be going and doing stuff. So that's what, definitely was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. But there were a lot of other things, unaddressed things.
Was it the first time you struggled with mental health in your life?
In that way, yeah. Like anyone, have my own minor issues or whatever. But to the point that I had to reach out because I was just like, what is going on? And scared, basically. Yeah, it was the first time, and it's not been the last time because I addressed that. Then other things came up. In fact, this year, December into this year, and you'd think even I'd learned the lesson, even though we'd started Mentalk Ubuntu, but you just assume you've addressed certain things and it's done. Like, it's fixed, I'm good, let's go. But then something else crops up, because even though I knew it was there, it had nothing to do with that other thing, but I should have probably also addressed it. So now it's this constant journey of, I just need to address all these things so that I can carry on and they don't end up coming up out of nowhere. Because
so have you essentially, like, what I'm hearing is that there are some underlying issues or underlying things. Now, those are usually like very deeper things, like they could stem from childhood, stem from previous traumas. How do you really extinguish that though? Because it's ingrained in you, right? It's part of who, it's shaped you to be who you are now.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, new things came on top of that, so it really enhanced those traumas in you. Now, is it truly, is it possible to overcome traumas that come from childhood, or is it something that you just kind of deal with, put on a bandage kind of thing, and then move on with life? Because I think that's what a lot of people feel about, I was once, let me even take it to the absolute extreme. I was once like molested as a child kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at the core of it, it's about understanding in the journey of mental health. So let's put it this way, right? Just like when we were addressing your younger self, that's always going to be part of who you are. So you can't overcome it, or you can't ditch it, like fix it and throw it in the trash, because that's you. So the more you try and do that, the worse you're going to feel. Maybe you feel okay now when you do that, but eventually it will somehow catch up to you, because you're saying you hate a big part of yourself. So the idea is you understand, and say you understand that if it was something like abuse or so, it's not your fault. And you see, not just, so most of us would say, I was powerless in that situation. I was weak and I got taken advantage of.
You're the victim. Right?
Yeah, and you're the victim, but you, in a sense, you're almost blaming yourself as the victim. Like, why weren't you strong enough?
That's the thing, especially as a black man, you're not meant to be a victim. Like, you're meant to be like, all right, I'm macho, like I'm
bigger than this.
I'm gonna take care of it.
But if you come to accept that I was a kid, I didn't know better, the other person did know better, or you know what, they took advantage of me, or maybe I made a poor decision. I pursued an older woman. Who knows? Whatever it is, like, but you understand why that happened, and you understand that there's no need necessarily to feel shame or guilt for that, then it stops being about how can I put this in the trash. You accept it, you understand why it happened, and it shouldn't bother you as much. It's just like, you don't break up with a chick and stop dating. Well, some people do, but you don't break up with a chick and stop dating because you had a bad experience. Typically, you'd try to understand what led up to the breakup, and you can see the role you played, the role she played, and after that, you try again. That's the typical way, right? Like, but if you don't, then you're stuck. Or if you don't review what you did, what the other person did, chances are it'll creep up again.
Yes.
So I think essentially, like for me, I just now see it as I genuinely want to love myself. I do love myself. And I want to love myself more. I want to give other people the ability to love themselves more and embrace themselves more. I think everyone's awesome where they are. And even when we talk about relationships, a lot of the time, if we talk about meeting people where they are, loving them for where they are, not what they could be, all that sort of thing, because just like if someone's saying to you, you need to be jogging, you need to be doing this, while it might have good intention and they're talking about the potential they can see in you, what they're saying is, as you are right now, I'm not a fan. And you're looking at you in the mirror right now. No matter how you look, no matter if you were like 400 pounds or whatever, that's what someone's saying to you immediately. I don't like you the way you are right now. That's a hard thing to hear.
And it's such a heavy thing in Nigerian culture. I was looking on these memes and these girls are like, oh, why are aunties and uncles always like, aren't you gonna get married soon? Or like, when are you gonna get married? Or, oh, you've really put on weight. Or like, and then I saw this girl, she's like, this is what you say when they say that. You've really put on weight. You go, auntie, that's so funny. I was just about to say the same thing to you.
No.
Don't try this.
God forbid.
No. But that's what you wanted. That's what you wanted to say.
You want the best deflection for the marriage one is, oh, when you get married, you say God's time, my time.
Oh.
You can't rush God. So who are we to fight God?
That's a good one.
That's a good one. I like that. That's not going to get you slapped as well. So.
But I think even if we look in the Black community, how many aunties are single? Because like when you go to a wedding
Or happily married. You know,
that's
some are in,
happily.
yes,
Happily.
some are in situations that they don't want to be in, but the culture
To save face, they
Yeah.
have to stay in it just because I can't let everyone know I'm divorced. And they know their husband's like dating the secretary and like has 3 mistresses and like, well, as long as he pays the bills and no one finds out, it's cool. So like, yeah, it's all a lot of it for sure. And that's a problem because our culture is so strong that it shapes so many of your different decisions and like how you perceive yourself and how others perceive you and everything.
There are pros and cons to our culture though.
Oh,
right?
that's
So,
serious cons.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of pros, but a lot of cons. I get like the same thing as you. They would call me Dogo, which is like tall, skinny dude in Nigeria. So I was always like, oh, I'm so skinny. I need to put on weight. I was always like, damn, give me some of your weight, and then I'm gonna put on the gains, and then we're both gonna be happy. But like, so then I'm trying to eat loads, trying to do weights. It's just like work for like 2 months, put on like this much weight. So it's just like the struggle. It's the struggle. So yeah, it's like I think no one's really happy with like when you're a kid, people always have insecurities. Just I feel in like African cultures, they emphasize them more and make you worry about it. But then if you actually think about it, all these girls who used to be like, oh, I'm too big. Now they're like really desired and everyone's trying to like get butt injections and boob injections.
Exactly.
It's like
curves
in. But before when they were in school, like, oh my God, I hate my curves. And now they're like, oh, I love my curves.
Exactly.
And some people are like, oh, I'm so skinny, I'm so hot. And they're like, oh my God, I wish I was more curvy like you. So it's just like, I don't think anyone's actually happy like with themselves. You just have to love yourself, accept yourself, and like try to stay positive and optimistic like us.
That's it.
Indeed.
So Ray, let me ask you a question because you know, we've talked about Nigerian culture and you're from Zambia.
Yeah.
So are there any sort of stigmatisms or any sort of things that the Zambian culture kind of has caused you to not always be positive minded about your situation in life?
I'd say first and foremost, with Zambia being the best African country.
Second.
Number one.
After Nigeria.
How many Olympics? Tell me how many.
I was speaking.
How many African nations have you won?
Now
Sorry,
you see,
I was speaking.
what kind of measurement is that?
It's all relative.
You need to use God's measurement.
Oh,
It's
okay.
The most peaceful country ever, you know?
Okay.
No, it's true. It's the most peaceful country in Zambia, like in terms of, you know, no civil wars and things like that. So, you know, when you go there, a lot of people are very laid back, happy kind of thing as well. But again, there are still the same African cultures of anything to do with mental health. you should be in a mental institution straight away,
Mm.
tied up and everything else like that.
Is he mad? You know,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so that's also linked to, you know, what we spoke about previously as well in terms of race, because as we've spoken about even in previous podcasts, is that when you're in Africa, there's no such thing as race. Until you step into the Western side of it, you're black. You're black, and you're like, what? What's black? I'm human. And then there's that differentiation, and then without even you realizing, it starts to affect your mental state. You go into school, you get called this, or you get called, you know, darky, and all these things. But again, you suppress them. But for me, I think, you know, I've never let go of, you know, the actual culture itself. And if anything, even in the Zambian community, I'm always kind of breaking that mold and speaking to even older people about their mental health and what mental health is, because even though they're cognizant it's there, they've never really addressed it. And I came to that realization a long time ago where as much as I had friends, I was like in the same place as you, where the only time I would be with my friends is when we're going out, we're partying, we're getting smashed for drinking. And when it came to my struggles, strifes, and things like that, is that I could most probably tell them high level stuff, but the deeper level stuff, I had to keep to myself. I had to numb myself. I'd had all different mechanisms. And as time went on, I learned that every year requires a different you. And because it requires a different you, it also requires a different circle, because there's a saying that if your friends are like wolves, you're going to learn to howl like wolves. If your friends are like eagles, then you're going to learn to soar great heights. So essentially, I take that everywhere I go. Every single year, I'm improving myself, starting with my mental health and also the people I'm around all the time. Because, you know, if they're doing well and they're winning, the fact that they're winning, I feel like I'm winning as well. And essentially, that also feeds into, you know, my culture and what the seeds I kind of give to my daughter as well. Because that whole journey of, you know, culture, mental health has really empowered me to even be a dad I never even thought I would be, kind of thing. And again, it's just a learning curve all the time. As a matter of fact, I was going to ask both of you, because I've also gone through therapy as well, proactively, but at the same time, during that proactive, it was also reactive, and it just came at the right time. And prior to that, I'd never been through. What's your perception of like going to a mental health therapist? You know, prior to this time, would you have ever gone to one? Would you go into one, you know, moving forward?
I think for me, actually, one thing before I start, this is when you said, tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. That's a proverb that's been used against me, or iron sharpens iron, right? So your network definitely helps shape who you are as an individual. And, you know, this is why we're also doing the podcast, because we're trying to expand people's networks and things like that. So, you know, help each other out, succeed. And, you know, when one person succeeds, you all succeed, kind of thing. So things like that. But now to answer your question, I'm not dodging, don't worry, is I know, personally speaking, I've never gone to therapy in my entire history. And would I have gone to seek therapy for something? I don't know, like a professional? Probably not. But I will say this, I know for a fact, like, you know, if there was ever a problem in, let's say, marriage, or let's say a problem in relationships, you know what, a lot of Nigerian culture would be like, oh, you can consult your family. You know, family will be able to, her family and his family can come together and help resolve things, or kind of thing, especially if it's on borderline of divorce and things like that. I know that's a thing that's part of our culture, but, you know, that's not always a good thing, right? Yeah. Sometimes you will be required to go to professionals. And sometimes even Nigerian culture also say this, or at least from my experience, let me not even just say this exclusive about Nigerian culture, is like, I know that it's often advise that if you don't go to family, you go to church, you go to your pastor, you go to couples therapy that way kind of thing, but not to a licensed professional that specializes in couples therapy kind of thing. But for me now, as an individual, I'm single, so I don't need to go to couples therapy anytime soon.
It's hard.
Yes,
It's a safe space.
it's a safe space. Thank you, brother. Thank you. I know that I might be a little bit hesitant at first if, let's say, my partner said, hey, let's go talk to someone, because of that mentality. Oh, I'm too strong, I shouldn't involve someone else external to us, our relationship, to discuss our issues kind of thing. But I know that it's an option that is readily available to me, and there'll be less of an initial obstacle now to say yes than previously, right? Because I know that I'm not the only one that goes through challenges, and I'm not the only one that would go to therapy. There are other people that their success stories that have been had from going to therapy. And of course, not every therapy session works, but there's no harm in trying, right?
What a political answer. This guy is a full-on politician.
But you know what?
He's like, let me sit right on the fence and just give both sides of the argument so everyone's happy.
If I was in a relationship. Never mind now. If I was in a relationship. It's cool.
That's my truth. I don't know.
If that's the context you see it potentially happening, that's fair.
Yeah.
How about you?
I want to do relationship therapy. I have been to therapy. I went like last year or year before. Normally though, my therapy is in the tattoo parlor.
Okay.
So like
Not the barbershop.
Different type of therapy. If someone close to me dies, I normally get them tattooed on me. So like, speaking of mental health, my friend committed suicide like a few years ago. So we got like, I got him tattooed. There are 3 of us, so we got 3 crosses. But like, that was actually what made me start realizing men's, because he was like a normal, happy guy. Yeah. And like, he just like hung himself one day, and like, no one knew it was coming. So that's kind of when I noticed how bad this men's mental health is, because, and then I had like, not my family, like family friend, was like, I think 16 or something, shot himself in the head with like his family gun, and he was Nigerian. And I'm just like, what? You're like 16, like how? So it is an issue because people don't say anything to this too late. And the reason I did go to therapy was super deep, so I don't know if I should bring it up on this podcast. I feel if you're positive and happy people, when we have bad things, we take mental health worse, like we get more depressed, because if you're happy 99.9% of the time, when you're really sad or something really bad happens, it like takes you from up here to like, so yeah.
Crazy.
I think that's a good point for anyone intending to try these things out, is to know that they are finite. They do come to an end, and it is your choice whether you continue or not. And the most important thing is knowing that they are available, and that if you feel like you need to, you can go ahead, as and when. You can go for 1 session, stop.
Definitely coming mountain climbing with you guys. You guys will be my new therapists.
Your tattoo parlor is now taking you to mountain.
Tattoo on the mountain while doing therapy and getting a haircut. Get it all done in one day. Exercise, haircut, tattoo, therapy.
That's a good day.
Grief is a hell of a one, because everyone deals with it in their
Eventually.
ways. Yeah.
My normal way is like, just coping mechanisms. Party like a rock star, and like, just like ignoring. But then that literally doesn't get resolved, because then 2 years later, you're like, something will remind you and you'll set you off and trigger you. Like, damn, I was listening to this song with my boy. Shit, I miss it, man. Because you're driving and you're like crying and shit.
Because this goes back to that. I don't want us to unpack it too much, but I think it goes to this point. Like, the loss has happened. It's you learning how to deal with the loss and getting your own tools, or learning how to address the thoughts. That's pretty much it. Like, therapy or engaging with services or all this is to just get you more familiar with how to deal with these things. It's not a unique fixing. You just don't know the questions to ask, and you don't know the things to do. And that's what these things exist. Like, someone has gone away, studied, had years of this, had their own issues. In fact, one of our guests in season 2 she does couples therapy, and very insightful. Like, you can't beat it.
You're absolutely right. There's every single journey with therapy has a beginning, has a middle, has an end, but how people change and going through that journey, it definitely is unique to them. And hopefully, some people's journeys are set for that set time. Some might need it longer. So, and I don't even know why I didn't even bring this up earlier, but my friend Fian, who I talked to, my childhood friend, and my sister, they both went to medical school, doctors, lawyers, engineers. That's the only option they had to choose, but they followed through it. And funny enough, they've now specialized to be psychiatrists. So, and they themselves often now they're trying to break the stereotypes of Black people in that go to therapy, or even not even therapy, because sometimes the people that go to psychiatrists are, chemical imbalance and needs like that hardcore medication, and then going to have therapy on the side to help them go through their stuff. And it's amazing to me how one, that they're able to even get in there, and then they've learned so much more and gained more appreciation for mental health, and how it's hard to talk about in our cultures, but it is a thing. And I'm also now in agreement with them that as we grow up, as our generations evolve, we're now more readily talking about these things, right? So it's not so much a taboo as it was for our parents, right? So people are now openly talking about, it's stressing me out, or I'm going through some stuff, and then people are able to talk more about it. So we're happy about that. But, we can't blame everything on, oh, you're upset, so you can't just go to therapy. Some things could be a chemical imbalance. Some things you might need to actually go to medicine to go resort. So, but yeah, I think all in all, there's options for everyone, and good, bad. You have network in us and your podcast, and your friends, family, and professionals that you can speak to about it. So we're very thankful for having you guys come on our episode, and vice versa. Hopefully your audience has learned great stuff, like Big D's chocolate favorite favorite chocolate. Single. Yes. All you ladies out there, I don't know. Do you guys do video? I don't know why I keep clicking in this camera.
They need the voice.
All right.
Voices are not.
All right. So
we do.
yeah. So how is it that some of our listeners, our YouTube watchers, are able to connect with you guys or your podcast?
Yeah, just search Mentalk Ubuntu. You've got us on all the social media platforms, pretty much Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We've got our podcast out as well. You can watch us and see our lovely faces on YouTube, of course. And if you subscribe, if you link and connect with us, that's it. You've got a direct line to the top. So drop us an email, drop us a message, say what's up.
Come climb some mountains with us.
Yes,
Or
sir.
go cave diving, or
They'll go
full of
cave diving.
dunking. It was a splunking.
Yes. Some Batman.
Yes,
stuff.
exactly.
Yeah, that sounds very cool.
That's hardcore, man.
Try something
Man,
new.
you want to be like Batman, don't you?
That's true.
Yeah,
Actually.
exactly.
I do want to be like Batman.
Alright. True.
If you want to talk about something different, if you want to try something different, and if you want to expand your network to have different people, that's all we're trying to do.
Nice.
And I think it's important to mention, because when we speak about mental health, it's quite vague as well. When it comes to mental health, I always use the analogy of a bucket. You've got all the different things in the bucket. You've got your life, relationship, work, anything else that happens, all in the bucket. So if one thing's affected, everything's always affected. And it's all about ensuring that, you've got the right people around you. And even if it's the case that you find it hard to, share such things, the best thing, I remember reading an article that said, not just men, but also people as well, they speak better shoulder to shoulder as opposed to face to face. So as soon as you say to someone, you know what, let's go for a walk, let's try something different. I kid you not, you'll be able to unlock all sorts of conversations, and just, and you use that channel to kind of understand what the true mental health, or what issues every day you're going through. And that just enables you. So, that can even be just starting phase if you want to start, before you go to see a therapist or anything. Just because, as I said, with my journey, it was the case of I used to party for a lot of people, but I never had that open space. And ever since Mentalk Ubuntu, we go out, and it's just like your mental health in your life is a journey, and that's the same journey that we take on the actual hike from beginning to end, knowing that it's a consistent journey. There's going to be times we're going to stop. There's going to be times it's going to be hard, but we're all going to support each other essentially. So yeah, if anyone wasn't too sure or clued up on what mental health is, that's what it is. That's what we're here for, to help support you. And yeah, just a message away, really.
And just like that, we out. Don't forget to hit the like button to subscribe to Different Roots Radio on YouTube, Twitter, and all audio listening channels. Our talks air every other Monday. One love.